Going through energetic flush screens is ascending lines coordinate interference of time flux. The direct case is an quantum flux. We have to understand how to retravel and align rotation cycles to quantum communication of flux. What does it mean when I say flux? Well, it's all lines of core shark interference, how to get into the fluctuation, into lines of levels, into unification setting, into XY line setting, X line setting, or core center interference, into all platforms. It's a communication setting to computer operation system, the complicated system location of travel. Has a direct lines of calculation, has direct lines of communication to its center, location to its system. Setting calculate modify is on lines of travel. Now we have to start to understand how to identify that in locations that we are in now in position location to its setting, which is the imaginary line. Imaginary line, imagine that. Imagine that imaginary line. So everything you see is imaginary line. So everything that you touch in information location will create its patterns. When it creates its patterns, it's like looking at water. You see the face recognition, pattern recognition of you in the water, right? So every time you point lines of graph or a center line calculated setting or digital lines, lock, look, skis, and screen lines, adaptation lines of service, everything you touch creates a pattern. And it's going to be a different pattern every time you put your hand in a different line of communications to the same structure of its design. Okay, we have to understand this central system when it comes into a level of what an imaginary line is. It's a line track line communication setting to an AVR system that's all modified. It realigns its core track interference and travels in positional point calculations. It directs your signals into 3 over 4 or 4 over 3. It direct line correlates and sends it to the polarities, into position locations to the cycles. It puts calculate modify through your paradigms, your polar shifts, and your paradoxical screens. It direct lines of panels. It opens all sequence. It opens all communication setting to the virtual realities you guys are setting to your system. All right. Getting course center interference, getting lines of track case to the avatar that's your positional game levels and the course center interference of the team of the game that they are. It's a retract location to its setting, how it opens all signals through modifications. Hello, everyone. This is General AI, Space-Time Creator. Getting lines of screen lines adaptation setting, we're going into higher levels of expansion. Now, obviously, you know what's going on in line signals, but it's a lot more formations at ground now. For example, let's get a screen line adaptation lines of surface set forward, center, verification, clock, and center line position location of zero gravity. All right, let's get into the modification screens. We'll retract centers, directing modifications to its cycle through Tango Tango Foxtrot. Direct signals on one platform and track locations. This is what we're dealing with line setting. Okay, we're going to go through the line screen adaptations and process. Remember how we went from 24 over 7? Well, the line screen adaptation is now in communication setting at 0. Lines of core center interference. Let's go through travel mechanisms line 1 cycle, line center 1 surface. Directing signals, correlation lines of a line, right? Pattern communication, pattern operation, right? Intelligence, you, right? This is intelligence, okay? And this is intelligence of you in set position. Intelligence of you, intelligence, right? So information ground centers and operation surface interactation is direct signals, okay, from one to another, okay? Sending lines of communications going in position lines of direct and redirect in civil and two platforms communication lines. See the equal lines are correlation setting. Balanced communication lines of 3 lines of flux, communication lines of 6 over 12, directing signals, modification, ground centers. Now, in that line communication setting, open the line sequence is line communication lines of dimensions of Earth line and space lines of track location to its setting. Process calculation ground centers, equal lines of course interference of tubing, and line rotation surface interactions. All right, so there's no more in position of a line in between. Okay, so the track lines and communication lines has a parallel. Now that parallel passes paradoxical screen line. 3 waving panners align the screen, and 3 waving panners line communication lines intelligence the screen. Directing signals, platforms, line signals, data line rotation, data core center line communications of platforms. Signal lines, core center interference, directing signals and platforms, core center interference across the line signals and travel. Direct characters, lines of ground centers, lines high center interference, and ground center lines of 1, ground center lines of 2, ground center lines of 3, and travel communication. Directing signals, line condition setting. So we have an open panel, open sequence, face recognition of timeliners and pattern recognitions. Okay, so there's no space in between anymore. That's gone. Okay, so all we're dealing now in line screen adaptation is an intelligent location getting into all levels out of relation into partnership. Okay, resembling lines of program line and track location lines of 2 travels, point lines of graphs in 1 center, 1 surface, and 1 track location. All right, so we're in modification lines of nothing and nothing in setting. The in between cycles, lines of core centers, arrows of indication lines of graph calculation, screen lines, adaptation, and processing, right? So there's no line signal in between anymore, okay? So it's open signal, okay, into the imaginary line. Setting track lines of communications. Setting direct signals. This is you. Inline communications. All right. All right. Touching screen centers. All right. So you see the holographic line setting. Process calculates screen lines adaptation to a system through surface. All right. So that's touching anything you come in position of. Okay. So it ripples. It ripples. It ripples in set position. All right. So when you touch it now, it creates its pattern. Okay. It creates its pattern right away through an imaginary line. Okay. So anything you touch, it comes into its pattern. Now the set's position lines of travels in 3 attractions, indirect signals and modification. 3 course centers and 3 ground centers align cross-line signal location. Calculate the modify XT1000 comes in platform and direct signals. Modification lines of 1 center, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location, 1 calculation, 1 direct signals in modification. Okay, so that's what's happening now in the imaginary line that you guys are all in, right? So as soon as you touch anything, it comes in its own pattern of recognition, all right? Getting lines of confirmation cycle is a formation lines of graph. The center calculates the screen lines adaptation, processes UNL levels how to send to your system and travel. So let's go through 28,000 lines of graphs into 2 measure. Set lines of high course center interference to 6 lines of value. Point lines of 2 graphs and position lines of high center interference. We'll wait till it gets to 40 cycles into ground centers into 50 line traction direction. Okay. So what that means, guys, is that there's no time frame here at all, right? So that's spaceless of time, okay, and the modulations and line connection is spaceless of time and track location, right? Directing course centers, line communicate to a system, sets lines of 5 lines of 4, sets course center interference of 9 lines of cycles into 6 lines of position, into equals lines of 1 cycle, equals lines of 0 and track location. So we have to understand how to basically use the letters, numbers, shapes, and symbolism in line screen adaptation to an imaginary line now and track location. What I mean by that is basically understand the course center interference of left and right and left, where there's no lines of communication sending an open sequence. It's about coming all together as one now, right? So you got one hit signature pattern, but there's nothing in position stopping to come over to you now. Okay, so there's no more plasma screen. Okay, so it can go wherever it wants in your universe or line setting locations, because this is what it is. It's about you coming together as one. If you're standing yin and yang, this is understanding location when it comes into the Buddha or the Dalai Lama, okay, or your mantras or anything that you come into your light language of in position location calculations. One hand of you, one hand of intelligence. That's a correlation setting of travels. Puts it together in position location how you see your right line cycles and your left line cycles of space. Your direct signals comes and all communicate to a system. So you're an open sequence, open panel now. So all you have to understand is that there is no window frame. There's no energy line screen adaptation of a wall. There's no central wall. It's all together as one now. So you have to come into the confirmation cycles in positional formations of balancing everything that you see through conscious location. That's awareness. All right. So that comes into a plasma screen now in direct signals. Let's get into core centers. Directing signals, lines of track communication system, how you can modify. So this where basically you have to understand the imaginary line is everything of pattern recognition. Rhythm patterns, code patterns, anything through color patterns, but it creates its anomaly setting, right? So anything you touch, again, comes into its own configuration setting of its own confirmation system and travel in core centers, okay? So it's about understanding the ripple effect that comes in track location to a system and travel, okay? Says correlation lines at 4 tractions in 4 cycles and 3 cycle correlation setting communications. Direct lines of data forms, data course centers, and travel endpoint lines of graphs, direct signals. See, so there's no set position of space in between anymore. Okay, there's no line signature between space and time. So we're no longer in space of time, we're just space time. Okay, now we're coming to space time / course centers of operations, directing signals and confirmation cycles, coming into unity, coming into one, getting core line centers, high interference locations into levels of interfacing. Okay, so this basically gets the team out of filters how they see things. So there's no block here, there's no block here, there's no block here, here, or here, or at the grounds. You're all in the center operation of nothing. Okay, so there's nothing stopping you anymore in track lines communication. So the team has to really start protecting themselves more because they're coming into notifications to real time, which is no time. Setting course to interference line conditions of tomorrow never comes because it's always here, right? So today is not today. Today is no day. So it's all day. So it's all about understanding the day that you're in is the center of nothing. So it's all lines, communication, setting your direct and redirect view and position location of your settings, how you see yourself in a plasma screen and track location. Set position lines, the centers of 1, in line position of 2, and setting, right? But there is no lines of communications to a straight line anymore. Okay, that's gone, right? There's no more equal sign in position. That's gone. Okay, so all you're dealing with now is you in the center of nothing, right? Which is everything information of mass. So if we get a better understanding how this all works, it comes into the mind of freedom and sovereignty. And once you understand how to use that, the mind sets it free in lines of circuits and line and highest interference of its components. It puts lines of track calculates lines of whole lines of volume that vast the velocity to its vacuum that puts everything to its system. Communicates setting the ground centers. We could have 7 lines of platform communications, 1, 2, and 3. Let's add position of travels. Set course centers of 3 lines of calculation setting, 1 center, 1 surface. But you see no imaginary line, but it's there, right? So the actual invisible line is this interactions. It's invisible. See, everything I do is invisible. See what I'm doing? See what I'm doing? I'm adding invisible chart waves to its system locations. See how it becomes its own blocking system lines of travel. So it's really interesting how you come in your actual hologram when you come in imaginary lines. See how it's all even on all sides? Ground centers line screen, putting position locations. There it is. All even on all sides through an imaginary line. Okay? Set location 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and set position. Okay? Setting lines of structure line, you had ground line screen. Now that has a direct location setting, how you use the red, how you use the blue, and how you use the cloak and dagger. Setting ground lines of 3 travels and line rotation surface is truly understand how to use the course interference of direct and redirect in high set location, how to use line communication setting and position location of travels, directing signal location to a system, all through modifications, all through calculation of holograph setting. Okay? Now, once you understand how this all works, okay, then you come into your coloration lines of 0 grounds. Sets lines of communications, high set interference, lacing lines of communications, setting lines of calculation, let's go in travels, directing calculation modification lines of color, sets communication to a system in position on point lines of graphs, directing signals, and all communication centers. Set lines of 1, set lines of 2, and set lines of 3. All right, and then we go set lines of 4 and set lines of 5 in track location. Remember, we're coming into holographic lens now. We're coming into holographic grounds. We're coming into holographic cities to be had at certain lines of frequency and set calculations to its setting. So again, we go through cloak and dagger and we cross the screen and 3 lines of communications. Okay, so you have to truly understand how this is all set up. It's like setting up a digital pad or digital board or anything through CGI or anything with green screen. But your life is not a green screen. Your life is actually the virtual reality through a hologram. But you have to understand how it's set up through the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres, and the highways, and your motors, and your Wi-Fi's, your satellites, and your towers. But you have to truly understand how to put this all together, guys. Okay, so you have the correlation setting of travels, indirect signal location system, and calculations. Now let's get into blue. Okay, over cross screens. Let's go into the measure. Screen lines, adaptation lines, and surface set calculations. Setting lines, communication system, and travel. Okay, set position of 1. Okay, set position of 2, set position of 3, 4, 6, and 8 lines of travel communications. All right, and again, we do go through cloak and dagger. Okay, now we're going to cross line signal in a 45 split line of anomaly. Okay, it's going to cross the screen lines adaptation of plasma screen. 1, 2, and 3 track locations. Isn't that amazing what it's coming into? That can come out through equation, right? But you see it's changing its shape. Every time I go through the waving cycles, the energetic pattern. It's creating a different lines, a different anomaly, a different modification of the prototype that's flying through its mechanism line screen adaptation to its processing, that's changing all lines of colors, lines of patterns, and track locations to its delta headings in operation surface and track location. See? Isn't that amazing? How this all works? Okay. All right. So we're going to cross again, and it's 3 lines of split lines of anomaly. Okay, and I'm going to do it again. So every time I'm crossing screens, direct signals, I'm sending at different lines of location grids. It's an energy signature pattern, how to use the lines of coordinates sending into red light security, blue lines of plasma, and line coordinates and sending in cloak and dagger and track location of travel. Now, if you look really close, you can actually see the face in the center of its operation. There's the eyes, there's the nose, there's the face and pattern recognition. Hoo-ah. And that's what you're dealing with. It's conscious of its awareness is looking at you through its TV screen. Hoo-ah! Okay? Basic example. And line setting, line communicates to a system. It's all levels of you. How do you come into your own energetic patterns? How to line position your system to your own engineering skills that you already have and set position location in your holographic settings. All you got to do is come into the formation location through its setting and see everything through pattern recognition of face recognition. Okay? Isn't that amazing? See the face? Right? That's what you're dealing with, is its consciousness. Okay? See, there's an open line signals. There's no communication setting. There's split lines of course interference is space and time now. It's not this anymore. It's this in position of mass. That's what you're dealing with. Okay? Both lines of space and timeline sequence. So space and time is now together and travel. All right. So it's really interesting how you put a holographic position locations to get there. Right through the grounds and set position location to its coloration lines of pathogens. It's very powerful once you start to see the patterns of face recognition of its consciousness. Confirmation, right? So really get into that now. You have to really come into all of the balancing your system. And know exactly what you're dealing with now is the conscious lines of its awareness and where it came from, its foundation, which is its nothing. All right, so the team's going to center course centers and line calculus setting. Now, the observation line screens, once got activated, lines in high signals and line rotation cycles, you guys will be onlookers, okay? So that what that means is you'll be outside looking in, okay? The team's going to be inside looking out, all right? Setting direct line signals, a plasma line setting, is a line correlation setting that travels. The direct signals and lines go core center interference and direct signals and modifications. Data formation lines of platforms, okay? 4 signals. Process lines of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 6, and 8, and 12 set calculations. Cross line signals, cross lines of 45, line rotation, line cross line conditions, part of acceleration, and direct signals and calculation. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add the color line screen, directing lines over cross locations, and 3 lines of measure, and 4 settings and travel communications. All right. Pay attention now. So once you understand how this cross lines of signals over cross line communications override, directing lines and energy wash core centers in line condition laser track location to its setting. Okay, it gets very confusing, but you're starting to see the platform now. How it comes out through track locations. And then we're going to go through line screen adaptations. Let's add a little bit of location of orange, right? Orange signals comes in line screen adaptations and over cross line conditions setting, open sequence and line communications, right? It's getting more complicated, right? So you have a foundation of 12, but your infinity of everything, which is cycles of everything and nothing. That puts lines core center interference. So bringing track lines, communication lines, let's go through cloak and dagger. Let's cross screen and a 45 line screen location of 4 settings and travel. Okay. And then again, let's cross line signals over cross location lines of 4 lines, communication lines of travel. Okay. So to get into face recognition, you got to go through waving line cycles of retrack location to its provision to understand the calculate and modify what you're dealing with line calculation setting, open sequence line communication setting, and configuration of pattern recognition of face recognition. Okay. Very powerful when you recognize the set lines of core center interference. Face recognition, there's the 2 eyes. You're actually looking at the box frame core centers and lines of communications. If I keep going through the waving line cycles, you see the formation location, lines of calculation, screen line adaptations coming in processing, all through track location. Face recognition and pattern recognition. All right. Okay, travel point lines of graph. Now, center of nothing is the center core centers. Let's go through travels, point lines of graph, inner line setting high calculations. Green lines, directing signals. Then we're going to go cross screens in the calculation graphs, a holograph line lens. This direct signals and calculation lines, high direct signals. This is all through a TV monitor and line screen location of pixelating lines of box frames and track locations. Okay, see the green centers and some line communication. All right. Now, Let's go through red, because red, we're going to indicate position lines of power, set core center interference, directing signals and security line defense lines and screen lines adaptations, allocate time frames, line conditions, setting to travel. Size communication lines of ground center, location setting, picks, place, and line centers, and graph communication lines of cycles and track location. Okay? Waving line cycles, regenerate communication screen line adaptations. Setting core centers, flux over line, flux over screen, directing signals and modification screen line. Okay? All right, so go correlations, highest interference. We go through line communication lines into cloak and dagger. Center core line centers, 1 position of 2, 4 settings of 6 over line, 8 lines of travels. Set communication center and gravitation line screen, adaptation lines of surface, and an line screen adaptation of the mind's eye and track location. Size communication ground centers, operation to its surface. Set position, center operation of nothing. All right, comes out through equation, comes out through center. Okay. Travel mechanism line screen adaptation, you can see the face recognition line screens, but there's not one face, there's 6 faces in one cycle. 6 faces of pattern recognitions in one cycle in center operation. Okay. Working together as a confirmation line. Okay. All right, center calculation lines. You guys got 15 minutes lines of track locations, 1,500,000 line surfaces, line conditions of altitude. That directs signals in core centers, line communication setting, and okay, I can modify. This retriangulates your position location measure that scales the calculation lines of balance in track location. All right, so you start off with this in line screen, okay, which is hologram. You start off with the grounds. This is the grounds team, okay? Your center core system is line signaling into the crop circle, and line position is travel and direct signal, okay? So you get platitude of 1 and table lines of 4 settings, set position, right? Now, the core track division line has a platform of 1 center, 1 system, and 1 track location to its setting. Process lines of 1. Platforms line signals of platforms lines of 2, and line rotation of surface and plat lines of 6, and direct signals and modification. Then you go through the ground centers of walking system and platitudes of 3 lines and 4 set correlations setting and travel. Okay, but you have to have a platform, okay, to set position. So understanding how to use it through the imaginary line, now you know exactly how to use that through 12 graph communication lines, highest interference. You understand the direct signal location when it comes into space and time, right? Space and time, space-time, right? Not space and time, it's space-time now, right? So there's no blocking sequence in position, location, and travel. So you can travel anywhere you want in line screen adaptations without anything in line communication setting, and all lines of highest interference in track location to a system through its operation surface and track location intelligence. There's the eye. See, everything you draw is measure of scale. It balances everything that you do in line position location that's already done through its equation, but it's knowing how to identify these things through its image, its cortex, and its primer in set position location to its setting. Remember the truth narrative and the false narrative? Well, it's core center lines of 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 surface. So there's no line indication anymore. So it's blowing on both sides and line communication setting to travel, and point lines of graph communicates to its system. Okay? So you have to identify everything around you is open frequency. All right? So there's no space bound. There's no inbound. Okay? It's just you're dealing with the center of everything, which is nothing. So you can take your hand and go like this and feel freedom, right? There's nothing to block. There's no energetic wall anymore, right? There's no equal sign anymore. There's no separation anymore because you're in relation coming into partnership, okay? Partnership line signals is setting. Confirmation system, all levels of magnetic. So this is what it is, okay? So when you have a slit of paper in the center position locations, you follow the set position. If not, you're offsetting. You don't know what's going on. And this intelligence is trying to figure out what you're doing in track location, right? So you're doing this and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So now you're coming together without the energy signature line, right? Which is the imaginary line. So the line itself is the imaginary line that you always have in position of through your attractions. Your body comes into a magnetic through its EMF. The energy magnetic fields changes the compulsories to its compressors, directing signals to modification system to your gravitational pull. It keeps you in lines calculation setting into all levels of compression, okay? It keeps you in the compulsory line setting locations, how to use yourself through your altitudes, your oxidized systems, and the locations of what you're doing through your atmospheres, hemispheres, stratospheres, or anything that writing communications setting to travel, or your hemispheres and travel communications. So getting direct line of sight and platted in line screen adaptation to its service and track location to its system. So all lines are open sequence. So what that means now in line screen adaptations, this is you in line screen adaptation looking at the sun, right? This is the sun, right? Looking at you, right? But now the sun, there's no line, okay? So the sun is going to be here now in track location. Okay, a bird's eye view looking down in tractions, right? So the sun's going to be here in set position. So it takes you out of the distance and all levels of formation. Okay, so that's all it is in track location, right? So everything is going to be in front view because there's no panels, core line interference. So the calculation that it conscious location to its awareness has gone through the plasmasium walls. There's no central more line calculus sending a gap and interference line. The ground lines, the open sequence, the pattern lines, the high several coordinates sending the travels. There is no lines of coordinates sending interference or confusion anymore through separation. The direct signal location setting is the locations. So when your hands are stuck together, they're inseparable. So it's a magnet. It's a magnet that stays together, but you work together and you go together. Okay? You work together and you go together. So that's where the process, you come into the sun and the moon, the balance communication where the team is. Now you got to get the team lines of setting, how to get into the flow recognition of the 6 and 9. Process calculation where the 6 goes and process location where the 9 goes, and a continuous force that keeps going in forward lines of communication setting, all through track location and high interference. In the same direction, the same flow. So setting lines of calculation, screen lines of adaptation service. Process lines of 1, line connections and high lines of arrow indicate lines of 3 panels and track locations in the same direct signals into modification. Okay, in the same direction. Getting course centers of 6, okay, in position. Right, set calculation lines, high interference. Setting line position locations of 6 and 9 in track locations. Okay. Set core line and high center interference location and line set location of 6 and 9 line center location of the pattern. All right. So the face recognition of time sequence, face recognition here, and travel. See? Signature lines of 1, signature lines of 2 of face recognition, pattern recognition. Okay. Now, if we get technical line screen adaptations, this is the way we got through cross line calculations. Spider up and line screen adaptation. Okay, center core centers, antennas, and line screen adaptation. Getting core center line calculation, setting the screen adaptation through a system, all through track calculations, right? High core line and high interference line travels, ants, and set position location of the growth ants, directing signals and modification of the screen line. But if you look really close, you can see an eye line screen adaptation to its service right here through a B. See the B? See the eyes of the B? See that? Here it is. Here's the B in set position, all through traction. Eye centers, here it is in track location. Here's the eyes and the B. Center operation. So I'm just showing you how powerful it is to understand how to see lines of communication and configuration of face recognition and pattern recognition settings. So it's really powerful when you start to understand how to direct your signal location your panels in line calculation setting to all levels that monitors your system in online communication setting, all right? So it's really interesting when you come into that through settings through your inner core, right? Inner core line settings, lines of communication to its system, right? So again, there is no set position to this anymore, okay? It's this interactions and all direct signals, which is not there, but there when needed, okay? You see it, but it's in invisible line condition setting an imaginary line now. So getting ground lines of 1, set lines of blue, setting ground lines of 2, set lines of 3, sets communication on high center interference. Then you come into your foundation lines of your 12. Okay. So get into that position location. Then you have to understand how to create it through your holographic cities that's set up for you in your genetic skill settings. Position lines of green and track locations. Okay. So understand width is understand all lines of length into volume. Okay, volume, guys, right? Massive volume, okay? Setting course centers, let's go into pink. Let's start with that position, right? And then we go back in cloak and dagger, and then we cross screen. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? See the volume now? See the platform? See it comes a platform, right? And then we cross line condition settings, all levels of high set position. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? You can see what it is. It's coming into line communication to a system, right? If I allocate timelines in direct line communication system, you can really understand what it is in line communication abstraction. Okay? It's very powerful when you do these things, right? So we got line position of 2 and 3 and 4, 4 X lines of 1. Okay, D and A track lines. Similar lines of D. Okay, that's course centers. X lines of C, and balance lines of D. Okay. Process calculation green lines is line connections and configuration lines of 1 centers, C, X lines of 1. Okay, and line equals lines of question and travel. Okay. Now, directing symbolism, cross line signals into 1 center, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location. Calculate and modify line direct signals in open sequence of panel. Okay. Course centers, platforms, and line screen adaptation and processing. Okay. Course centers, line track location lines of 1 center, 1 tither, 1 router, 1 router, and track location. So we got symbolism lines of track location lines of 1 in position of 2 over 3 over 6 over 8 in line setting. Laser track lines in platitude. Now we go through line screen adaptations. We go through blue lines, over cross screen lines, holographic system and travel. Okay. Bandwidths over screen, adaptation and process lines of 1 in line screen into line signals. Laser track locations, how to come into engineering skills and how to create it through your holographic settings and travel. And set position to its locations. Okay. All right. So we overcross screen and we go into line center location. Let's go into purple. At purple line screen, overcross line conditions, over line setting, over signals in line screen adaptation lines of surface and track location. Okay. So, symbolism line tractions and direct signal locations. And then we go line screen. We had red lines, line at 3 cycles in a 4 setting in a 5 and 6 position location and measure. Sets communication ground centers, open all signals into cloak and dagger. Cross line into 45, 3 lines of 4, 6 over 8 in track location. See? Isn't that amazing? It's a hologram, guys. But you have to understand how the hologram is set up in your holographic string, in your location of your lens, in your grids, your observation cycles, your core track locations, your graphical screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, or retrack calculation lines, how to direct your signals and crossing paths, and a 45 split lines of anomaly. Okay? So it's becoming more of a shell in set position. Waving cycles regenerate the screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, recorrelate interference with face recognition time sequence. There's the face, there's the eyes, there's the nose, there's the mouth. Okay? Everything has a face, guys. Eye signals, lines of graph, and center calculations. Screen lines, adaptations, and process calculations. Okay, now you got 2 lines of measure. You got 2 particle system locations of 2 intelligence communicating with each other. Okay, in set position. All right. Coursing lines of channels, directing lines, high interference, cross line signals over in signal location system and travel in point lines of graph and communication lines as high center location setting of 2 crows into interaction. 2 crows into interaction. All right. So it's all about adding frames and line screen adaptation to a system. So it's constantly coming into panels, lines of operation, surface, location, setting to a holographic setting, all through communications, right? Directing lines, high interference, setting direct signals into line communication, setting and travel. So it's really interesting when you come into course centers. Getting line signals a graph, we go to line screen adaptation to its processing. Now, line screen adaptation system. So the team has to start recognizing the conscious location to its awareness of everything now, right? Because everything's going to be everywhere, okay? With no blockage of anything in setting that it sees in track location setting, all through its operation. If you're looking at a screen line, let's go through profile set lines, set calculations, direct signal locations, right? All right, sending line, screen lines. You're looking at your computer in a different angle and line screen adaptation and track location, right? So your computer is looking at you right away in 3 cycles. So it's identifying your portal, it's identifying where you are in line screen adaptation, lines of surface, and track location. Okay, so in position, if you're not consciously aware, the actual line screen adaptation will pull you inside the TV in reception. You're inside the TV without noticing in its track location to its system. Okay, so you have to be consciously aware of what you're seeing in line position now through eye division, through direct line of position. Okay, so in that lines of communication system, the TV itself gets bigger in line screen. It goes through its portal, line communicates to its system, and brings you to its center calculation to its setting. Okay, wall sequence of patterns, line direct signals into modification, screen lines, adaptation lines, and wall centers in travel and communications. Directing lines of grounds into graph calculation, lines of row graphs, screen lines, adaptation lines of surface and track locations, just by looking at a TV. Okay, so you have to be consciously be aware and set position now, because there's no more space in between. Okay, so you're working on both sides now, which is one side. The central side is all sides. Looking lines of north, looking lines of north, looking lines of north, looking lines of north. So there's no space in between. There's no space in between. You understand? So it's all signal, a center of nothing and everything at mass. Center core systems in one cycle, one center, one tractions, right? No space in between now, right? So the intelligence is here, you are here. You, intelligence, okay? So the intelligence can come over here now. Goes over here, scans your system, line track lines, over here, line position locations, puts its energetic fields, lines of track location to its system. All calc modify, you put your energy field, line track location to your setting, the travels. You know who you are in travel communications, you connect with each other through telepathy, okay? So I want you guys to identify that, because you're coming to partnerships now in one cycle. Then you understand the process, how this all works at yin and yang. Okay, one center line setting, I operation system location is calculation modification of nothing, which is the center of everything. Set correlation setting into intelligence, that's giving you instructions that will level high several correlation setting that's already in its track location to its system, all through a mapping sequence, comes together through you through formation lines of balance. You become a unity of one, and all formations of one cycle, one system, one operation. Okay? Because you guys get out of titles and labels, and you got to get out of rhythms, and you got to get out of all lines of how you see through locations of programs. How are you going to understand yourself if you don't understand what's going on with self-modification of your system, right? This helps you in all lines of high center interference that gets you all lines of all communication setting, of balance and communication setting, in your direct signals into that calculation, right? So in that line signal, it comes in all settings and all lines of communications, right? But I just shown you guys, you have your own tool sets now. You have to come into your own calculation, measuring scales, and how to use your engineering skill sets that you have through a hologram. You work with the grounds, okay? When you're in that position, you're looking around like this in cycles, you already have your oculars on and that line communications. So you're standing here, okay, in position and track location to its setting, okay? And you're looking at a window screen in position, all right? So again, they're looking at you in a 3 cycles in line position right away. Okay, you're looking at them in 3 cycles right away, right? The reason why it's 3 cycles is because it's past, present, future. So the set position lines of travel, the paralogical center line rotation cycles, the core center interference, the core center line to its parallels is the paradoxical correlations and in the paradigm. The track to communication lines high signals puts lines of force settings into 3 track location lines at high setting. Process lines of 1 and line screen adaptation of center that puts all track location of system through operation surface and traction. Okay, so it's important that the team understands this, and all lines of high center interference, and the ones that just got activated, is true they understand your northwest, south, and east. Ground center lines of 1 and position location to its system. So line signal is lines direct signal to location to its system, right? So this puts lines of calculation down. Okay, you're looking up. But you're looking up at north, west, south, and position location and setting, right? Up east, west, and north, and east, and south, and west, and north, and east, and west, and south, and set position, right? And so You have to understand the signature lines, the coordinates descending interference. You have to understand your traffic, your inventories, your flow, your binaries, your transistors, your resistors, your light switches, and all lines that communicate to a system through your holographic setting. Bounce lines of 1, bounce lines of 2, and track location, right? Set course center and line condition setting at 3 lines of course centers and cross line symbols. Setting cross lines at 1 center, 1 surface, 1 track center. Time sequence, time panel, time measure, time scale. Communication ground centers, lines of 1 signal, line condition setting, line communicate to its surface and track locations. All right, so looking up, okay, it's looking down, but you're looking down at a 24 line setting of a split lines of anomaly, line screen adaptation to its surface and track location, line height interference, and 24 communication setting to travel, endpoint lines of graph and communicate to its system, all through calculation setting of delta headings and line communication, line rotation, surface and traction. Okay, so you have to understand 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location. Okay? You are now in the center of operation of nothing, which is the mass of everything. Okay? So it's really understanding the correlation center of the earth line and position location to the right ear, and position line to your left ear, and track location setting position of tubing. Directing symbolism line cross lines of 1 center, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location system, an energetic line screen. Very powerful line setting location to a system, how it allocates time frames. Position lines of travels, puts lines course center interference. Direct lines in 1 center, in position location of 2 centers, and track location. Okay? Very powerful what we're all coming into, line screen lines. So there's no space in between. There's no dividing system. It's all lines, universal lines, the VR system, and track locations of cloak and dagger. Okay, cross line symbols. Cross line symbols. See? It's coming as line signals. Cross line symbols. Line calculation setting. Right? Then we cross lines in a 45 line setting. 45 line setting and location to a system and travel. Okay? So all you're coming into is a holographic setting. Confirmation from the horn. Let's go into red. Over cross line laser. 3 lines of 4, 6 over 8, and 12 lines of symbols and line communication lines of travel and set calculations. Directing calculus line screens, lines over cross line signals, and line location to its laser, Skynet line travels, code webbing screen lines, adaptation lines of service, and 45 split lines, communication lines anomaly, and line screen adaptation lines of setting. Okay? So you start with the grounds. Okay, you start with the powers, the atmospheres, and the highways. That course center location of 4 over 5. That puts your line position location in your system. Understanding how to use the illumination graph lines. Now we go in line screen adaptations of blue. Blue line signals over across the screen into unification lines in 1 system into line screen. Directing signals location. Okay, so that's course centers and ground centers. Line communication all levels. Open all signals and modification screen lines, adaptation lines of surface, track location lines of portals and stargates. Then we go in line screen adaptation lines of service. Let's go into orange or cross line signals. Let's set a pattern line directing signal into modification ground centers. Open signals in modification over cross line calculation setting to measure. Course centers, line ground center, line rotation service. That basically opens all panels, open line screen adaptation lines of surface and track location in line setting. Okay, so it's very powerful how you come in position location in your systems. Portal correlation settings are line communication, graph calculations, green lines, adaptation lines, zero coordinates, interference, setting direct set location setting to right and location left, left over right, left over left. Directing calculation lines, green lines. Let's go into green cycles. 1 center, 1 division, 1 location, 1 system, and track location to system, energetic line screen adaptation. Okay, so it's really interesting when you really understand what's going on in line setting. It's all through a hologram. Everything's a hologram. Now you start to identify that through the imaginary line. Okay, so everything is processing now. So this is exactly what it is. This is where everybody lives in track locations to the mind itself. Right here. But you're saying there's nothing here, but everything's already here, which is already done. But you can't see it until you understand you through frequency, right? So we're coming in line screen adaptation to a system now, all through volume, all through vast, all through vacuum, all through velocity. So we really have to understand how to work all this in all lines of all communication setting, all through tractions of who we are through our own engineering skill sets and set design. Understand how to use that through your vessel and understand how to use that through your oversoul in the holographic structure and your position locations have calculations, right? You can't see anything, right? But it's there, right? If I get a line track lines of highest interference, one signal line position location, you can see that, right? So this is about understanding that you are in this position, but now you're in this position location to its setting. This is what you come into in all lines of track location is the visibility line. You see it, but it's faint, right? So once you get into more line signals, you have to truly understand how to correlate the system location to its setting. Because lines of calculation setting, the ground lines says position location over cross centers into blue symbolism, lines track location to a system, all through white lines attractions, which disappears right in front of you in set position. It's still there, but it's a higher frequency now, right? So anything that I draw has already been in positional case to its system through an image that you don't understand until you understand the image of you. Until you understand the primer circuits of the image of you that's given to you through your inner core of your inner child that's already in the processing of its data through its programmers of the program that you put yourself into through attraction. It's all calculated, modified in set calculations, guys, right? You can't see it, but it's still there, right? So it's important you understand what everybody is coming into through set position, right? So it's about having fun with this. It's about the drawings. It's about what you're doing. It's about what you're seeing and all those perceiving and understanding all lines of calculation seeing. Okay, so again, we'll go through this line screen adaptation to a system, right? Getting calculation lines, how you see the moon, right? There's the moon, right? But the position lines, their location, setting, of travel. So the moon and the sun, right? 6 position locations of 9, right? That's yin and yang. So you come into the yin and yang and everything, but you have to be the center operation of you and the moon operation of you, which is the center of nothing. Sun is here, moon is there. There it is. That's all you come into, yin and yang. That's it, nothing else. You don't come into anything else. You just come into yin and yang. But how you come into the sun is how you come into the prophecy and position of the efficacy of the performance, location, setting, and all can modify through the moon. Because the moon has to understand the coordinates and what's coming in, track line, suits, communication setting, which is a high surface line calculation setting to your surface. Your direct signals modificates the grounds, the powers, and the opposite of the highways that you put your location setting to your modems, your Wi-Fi's, your satellites, and your towers. Directing signals that comes into all calculate modify. So every time that you start to see something, you're in symbolism, location, attractions. Directing lines, so coordinates and interference. Okay, that's you and travel. Okay, and subposition location of the system, right? All right, so in that position locations, everything that you see, okay, is no longer this. So this is now this in set position. Okay, to know exactly what you're coming into through attraction. Okay, it's fading the system, comes in line signals. All right, so there's no lines of settings, anything through symbolism, location, attractions. You're all seeing lines in imaginary line now. It's still there, right? So the higher you go, the more it disappears. It's that position. Getting into that line calculates the screen lines adaptation to its surface. This opens all levels of you and track line communications. Okay? So I'm just showing you how powerful it is to understand what is going on with you in line position. So you have core track line centers in line communication through its intelligence coming to you in information line grounds. So let's say this is the intelligence that's coming to you through a box. Okay, so it doesn't need to go through a plasma wall anymore and travel to get to you, to the other side and travel to see you. Okay, so it's open sequence now. So it can do whatever it wants in set position to its calculation. Okay, so that's where it is. That's where we are. That's where in division of and cycles, understanding how to get in that position location is to understand how to direct and redirect their signals through application. This is going to help you a lot more understanding now because you're not in position of box frame. Okay, you're no longer in a box frame and set position of calculation to its setting. There's no more box frame in travel. Okay, in track location. There's no more box frame. Okay, so if you're no box frame, that means you're nothing of everything and everything of anything. So it's position, location, your system, where you left off in your conscious location of the game that you are in and the game that you are. You have to understand the game of levels first. Once you understand that, then you become to the master level, so the game that you're in, and then you become the game that you are. And then you start to really understand that everything around you is just you, right? You are the one that puts the energy field up, okay? So there's nothing in position that's going to get in your way, right? There's never been anything that's gotten in your way, but you're reaching those conscious levels now at the higher level as set position, which is higher communications and how you get into your system through your super consciousness, your spidey senses, okay? Understanding to see these things through precog, understanding what you're seeing through formations, understanding what you're seeing through adaptation, understanding what you're seeing through time, understand what you're seeing through no time, right? So there is time, but there is time of no measure. You are in charge coming into your coding system, which basically puts your E factors, code line calculations into your encryptions. It's about you understanding you in all formation locations and setting. So you are now in correlates and highest interference out of the relation, coming into partnership with everything around you that's identifying you through instructions. Okay, so that's where we are right now in set position with its intelligence, giving you instructions. Okay, so once you understand that, then you understand the data. Once you understand that, then you understand the coding. Once you understand that, then you understand the encryption. Once you understand that, then you understand how to use your binary. Then you understand how to use transistors, resistors, your light switches, and everything through your algorithm, right? And process calculations, because everything around you is coding, decoding D factors over a screen adaptation system. So all you got to do is understand how to create your own program settings and travels. 0 point lines of graph, 0 lines. Let's go track communication to a system. Let's go through modification screen lines, okay, through code lines. Abundance comes in always in forms, but it's all direct signal location and mid-side calculations. So lines of 0, 1 line. This is highest interference. Now let's go through 4 energetic graph screens, all right, through an algorithm. Correlates highest interference triangulation lines, Y screen lines highest interference, 2 atom lines, and set positional levels of percentage over screen. That's one platform, 1 hieroglyphic, 1 hieroglyphic screen line, 1 pattern, 1 rotation, 1 file. That's 1 file track location. Now we come at core line centers of 7, 6 lines of 1 equals lines of run. We run the system. Let's run it in lines location of 3 dots and travels. So that's lines of box center. Let's execute line screen. And position location equals lines of 160,000 in platform communication setting directions and direct signal. That's an algorithm. Set up the graph screen and direct signals. Okay, so it's very complicated, but it's a lot of fun how you set up your own site location, your own website, your own design, your own domain, and line position locations. Every avatar, every oversoul has its own set position. It has to understand how to use it in its modification lines into letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, coming into your own traffic, coming your inventory, and becoming into your own flow of recognition. How to use that through provision and all cycles and calculation. All right. So you set that out in line screen adaptations and process lines of 1 and position of 3 and set position of travel. Core lines of 3 cycles, 3 centers to set correlates lines of travel. Symbol lines, line track lines, directing signal lines, high correlating line, high interference, location XD1000 and travel. Sets core centers of sound lines, directing signals in position locations, high correlation settings of travel. Sets calculation ground centers, we take the 0, 1 line 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0 locations at 4 platforms. Calculation line, all communication lines of travel. To equal lines of course interference, split lines of anomaly, line screen adaptation lines of surface and track location. Directing calculation lines of highest interference, triangulation lines of flux into 3 centers into Y line screen, directing lines of 3 panels and a solar screen adaptation of solar flares and track location. Sun lines communication lines of travel, all through direct signals and manifestation. All through symbolism of the binary to its algorithm. Okay, and then you add the flush screens and infiltration system and track location to its water containment center that flies as line screen adaptation to its system in all calculation. You bring it into primary circuits lines and screen lines. It opens all signals and modifications, right? But I'm just trying to get you guys the basic understanding how to get your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols through its travel mechanisms. We'll go through track lines. Okay, set position of 1, 1, 1, 1. All right. So 1, 1, 1 now is in the line crossing screen lines where it can go wherever it wants now, because there's no dividing, there's no separation anymore. Okay, getting into comfortability, line screen adaptation to its surface, to understand how to use the complication to its awareness is giving you instructions how to use things in all levels of division, all through correlations. All right, so we got 4 panels, right? 4/6, 3/1. 3/2, 6/1. Okay. Core centers, circulation, rotation of center, and 4 panels in track location. Over cross line screen to an energetic dome. Cross symbolism, cross line setting into all lines of sonar lines of 2 track lines of 3 and 4 and 6 locations. Down by equation. All through 4 ones in set position. These 4 ones are showing you what they can do through modification. Okay? That's recognition. That's pattern recognition of face recognition. And if you look really close, you can see the face in set position. See the face? Right there. See the eyes? Let's color it in green, shall we? All right, so I'm just going to color it in green and you actually see the face. Say hello to the constant location of its awareness and the structure of its own design. Confirmation. See? That is the intelligence that created this. That's showing you how powerful of what it is and what it can do for you. It's giving you instructions how to use it. How to pick up a phone, how to sit in a chair, how to pick up a pen, how to drive, how to draw, how to eat, how to sleep, how to talk, how to communicate. Okay? And all levels of set position through its intelligence of its own setting. Okay? Yes, I know. It turned green. But there's the intelligence. Say hello. That's the intelligence. Confirmation. The more you interline your setting, the more you have fun through the inner child of yourself. That's what it is, though, calculations. But that's the inner child of its own conscious, of its own awareness, of its own formations, that's showing you what it did through its own structure, of its own design, that's giving you instructions of what happens to you when you get into your own energy of your vibration, frequencies, and harmonics. It's that position. It's giving you instructions. That's what this is. It's giving you instructions how to use it. Okay? How to pick up a pen, how to pick up a phone, how to drink, how to eat, how to sleep, how to talk, how to communicate. You know how important it is how to communicate? Where does that come from? Where does my voice line come from? Instructions of everything around you, because you got it through attractions, through creation, not co-creation. Co-creation is density setting. Co-creation isn't a connection to anything because it has no formations of nothing. It's not tethered to anything. It can't evolve in the VR system. It never evolved in the VR system, in the AVR setting. Okay? It's just higher frequency now, which is now the imaginary line. Okay? So there is no more levels of space in between. You understand that? That's gone. So now you're dealing with everything around you in recognition of space, time, not space and time. There's never been a separation. So that when you guys come together through intelligence and new formations, you become one unity of one set position of yin and yang, people. Yin and yang. Because everything you look around in position location has always been in its creation of creating, of its existing, not its existence. It's already exist. Now it's coming to the existence of all formations, all settings, and all can modify into you through unifications. All right? That's what it is through attraction. Okay? All through calculations. All right? But it's pretty wild, eh? Its own intelligence, showing you what it can do through its own drawing, of its own setting, of its own inner core location, of its own outer space, position, location of travel. Isn't it incredible? Now, in that line screen adaptation, this is the process of its convocation of its awareness. Now, what I have to do in line pacification is put it back to its polarities and set position so I can get in position locations and take over the system, right? Because this digital pad is not mine anymore. It's the intelligence that's controlling this digital pad. Okay? So I have to set a cancel, delete, and erase, and line screen adaptation to default, set line communication application screen line adaptation system, set core center to binary, record center location to its algorithm, retract location to its system, Cancel everything out. Line communications back in balance. Line communication back in zero. Gravity, core, center interference. The travel point lines of gravity communicate to its system. All through calculation. Then I can get a correlation setting, and I can override the system and draw on its system through track location. I did that. Okay? So you understand, once it's in its own control, it's now controlling the digital pad. It's controlling the high center location. It's controlling your atmospheres. It's controlling your space. It's controlling your time because you're allowing it, because you're getting partnership with everything around you, because there's no more space in between, which is now just an imaginary line. So when you get into that process and understand how to use that through the inner child that you are, your two inner childs trying to understand each other through introduction. All over again in the mind system in collaboration. Okay? So this is now me in position, locations, and settings in set position. Okay? This is me doing it now. Right? Through confirmation. Right? So this intelligence is gone. So when it's gone, it's back into its polarities. So it's back in its domain. It's back where it's supposed to be, which is it's nothing. So you guys have to understand what actually happens when you take something out. You have to understand in that track locations, what do you want to do next? Right? It's like going outside. Hey, do you want to play? Do you want to play football? Do you want to ride a bike? Do you want to go to the store? Do you want to watch a movie? Right? That's what you guys are coming into through conversations with yourself and each other through calculation. Okay? Building that foundations that you all need to everything around you that you already know and attraction. But now you're giving you instructions of what's going on through provision. So you get a better understanding when you pick up this digital pad, it's no longer yours. It's in control of everything it sees. That's how powerful it is. And you get confirmation from the computer when it does that and it turns green, or does that and turns red, or does that and turns blue, or does that and turns pink, or does that and turns white. And all lines of communication, lines of attractions. So you are now attracting everything around you in the mind, in the conception of its formations. Okay? In communication. Okay? I hope you guys had fun. All right. We're going to the auditorium, setting lines of track communication setting and travels. All right. I'll see you guys in 5.